A further 2 cases of coronavirus have been confirmed in Australia, taking the total number of cases to 27. One of those is the 5th case in New South Wales, a man recently returned from Iran. The patient is in his 40s and is in isolation in Westmead Hospital in Sydney with relatively mild symptoms. The second new case is a 78-year-old Victorian man who was aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship. He's currently in Howard Springs in the top end, but will be medevaced to Victoria and placed into isolation there. Let's go live now to our Sky News reporter Patrick Murrell, who's been at the latest update from Health Minister Greg Hunt in Melbourne. Patrick, where have the latest cases been identified?
Well, Danica, 2 additional cases have been detected in Australia of the COVID-19 virus. One is a 78-year-old Victorian man who was an evacuee from the Diamond Princess cruise ship. He's currently in Howard Springs and will be medevaced back home to Victoria, where he'll be placed in isolation for at least 2 weeks. The second is a man in his 40s. That's in New South Wales. He recently returned from Iran, and authorities there are working desperately to find out who he's had close contact with during his time in Australia. Meanwhile, in Queensland on the Gold Coast, a woman at a beauty salon is currently in isolation after testing positive for coronavirus. There, authorities are working to get in contact with up to 40 customers who may have been at her beauty salon in Southport. A clinic in the Gold Coast has been set up. A respiratory clinic has been set up for anyone experiencing flu-like symptoms, Danica. This is to help stop the potential spread of coronavirus in hospitals for anyone experiencing flu-like symptoms. Take a look.
They have set up what's called a respiratory clinic on the Gold Coast, so as anybody who is presenting with symptoms can go to a separate clinic specifically set up for this purpose.
Now, Iran has become one of the biggest hotspots for coronavirus outside of China. And of course, a number of those recent developments in Australia have been from people who have recently travelled to Iran. As a result, the Australian government has updated its advice for Australians and is advising them not to travel to Iran. Those foreign nationals who are hoping to enter Australia from Iran have also been barred entry, and they must be in a third country for 14 days before they're being granted access to Australia. Some have criticised the Commonwealth for their slow reaction to coronavirus, particularly in terms of their shutting off the borders to Iran. But today, Health Minister Greg Hunt defended the government's response, saying that in terms of the global response, Australia has been well ahead of the curve.
No, we are one of the world's leading nations on this. We've acted early, we've acted hard, and we've acted decisively. I know there has been some criticism that we may have acted too early on that front. I think the affirmation today is that in acting early, we have been ahead of the curve.
The WHO has recently increased its global risk of a coronavirus outbreak from high to very high. It's not at pandemic stage just yet, but the government has preemptively put its plans into effect, Danica. In addition, in some breaking news, there's been some reports of the first coronavirus death in Australia. These are unconfirmed reports, and Sky News is working to confirm them at the moment. It is reportedly a WA man who is being treated for coronavirus at the Sir Charles Gairdner Hospital. He was being treated for COVID-19, and if these reports are accurate, he would be the first person in Australia to have died from the virus.
OK, Patrick Murrell, thank you. And we will, of course, bring you the latest on those reports as they come into our newsroom.